Pandora has always been alive in ways Earth could never understand, but this time the moon feels wounded. The forests still glow, the oceans still breathe, yet something underneath has shifted. This story does not open with spectacle or war. It opens with silence. A silence shaped like loss, hanging between glowing leaves and drifting water, pressing itself into every breath the Sully family takes. Fire and Ash begins not as a continuation of victory, but as the aftermath of survival, where staying alive is no longer enough. Jake Sully stands among the Metcaina, not as a guest, but not fully as one of them either. He has learned the rhythm of water, the patience of tides. Yet his heart remains anchored to a moment that will not release him. Netiam's death has changed the meaning of leadership for Jake. Once, leadership meant standing tall and fighting back. Now it means deciding who must be protected, who must be moved, and who must be left behind. The weight of command presses harder when it is your own blood that paid the price. Notori carries her grief differently. Where Jake grows quiet, she sharpens. Her mourning is not gentle, not inward, but burning. The humans are no longer distant invaders or abstract enemies. They are the reason her son's voice is gone forever. Her connection to Awa still exists, but it trembles, stretched thin by anger that refuses to settle. The film allows her rage to breathe, showing how grief can twist devotion into something dangerous when healing is denied. Spider lives at the center of that tension. Raised by the Sullys, shaped by Pandora, yet born human, he represents a contradiction the family no longer knows how to hold. When merchant ships cut through the sky, carrying the familiar hum of human ambition, Jake senses the cycle repeating. This time, he refuses to wait for it to close around them. His decision to send Spider back to the human scientists is framed as protection, but it feels like exile. The family travels together, yet the journey already carries the ache of separation. The attack comes without warning. From volcanic shadows emerge the Manquan, a Na'vi clan forged in fire and resentment. They do not call on Awa. They do not hesitate. Led by Varang, they strike with ruthless efficiency, setting ships ablaze and turning the sky into falling ash. The violence is raw, stripped of ceremony. This is not defense, it is conquest. In the chaos, the Sully family is torn apart, scattered like embers across smoke-filled air. Jake's path crosses with Miles Quaritch once more, a meeting that feels inevitable rather than shocking. Death did not end their conflict. It refined it. Quaritch, now reborn in a Na'vi body, moves through Pandora with calculated purpose. Circumstances force cooperation between enemies who know exactly what the other is capable of. Their uneasy alliance is built on one goal: finding Spider. Trust never enters the equation. Only urgency does. Spider's collapse marks a turning point. His oxygen fails, and the world he loves begins to reject him. Kiri responds without thought, driven by instinct older than language. She anchors herself to the land, surrendering to something vast and unseen. When Spider breathes Pandora's air for the first time, the moment feels miraculous and terrifying all at once. This is not adaptation earned over generations. It is intervention. And interventions always leave consequences. Captured by the Manquan, Jake and Quaritch witness Varang's philosophy firsthand. She does not reject human technology. She absorbs it. Quaritch shows her how to wield them, and in doing so, shapes a future where Pandora's greatest threat may no longer come from the sky alone. Kiri's command of the living world enables escape, but revelations follow close behind. Spider is no longer just human. An organism within him could allow humans to breathe Pandora's air freely. A know-how queue forms linking him to the planet's creatures. The boundary between speeches blurs, and with it, the fragile balance that has protected Pandora for generations. Even Kiri learns a truth that unsettles her. She was sired by Awa itself, yet remains blocked from full connection. Power, it seems, always comes paired with limitation. Quaritch returns to the Manquan with weapons and promises. His bond with Varang grows from shared ambition, not affection. Fire recognizes fire. When Spider is taken again, Jake faces an impossible choice. To prevent total war, he surrenders himself. The RDA base, Bridgehead City, becomes the stage for human arrogance reborn. Jake is sentenced to die. Spider becomes an experiment. Natori infiltrates the base, not as a warrior seeking victory, but as a mother fueled by desperation. Their escape forces a reckoning. Jake nearly kills Spider, seeing in him the future of human domination. He stops at the edge, confronted by the cost of becoming what he hates. Natori, broken and trembling, finally accepts Spider as family. Fire and Ash closes its first movement with a painful truth. Grief does not fade quietly. If ignored, it spreads, turning love into fire and memory into ash. The aftermath does not bring peace, it brings distance. The Sully family survives the escape, but survival now feels hollow, stretched thin by mistrust and fear. Pandora itself seems uncertain, as if the moon is watching its children fracture. Jake carries the knowledge that surrender did not end the threat, it only delayed it. Bridgehead City still stands, breathing smoke and steel into the sky, and the Manquan grows stronger with every weapon they absorb. The war has not escalated yet, but it has evolved. Spider struggles to understand what he has become. Breathing without a mask feels unnatural, like a gift he did not earn. The neural queue at the base of his skull aches, reacting to the environment in ways his human mind cannot fully process. Creatures respond to him instinctively, not as prey, not as rider, but as something unfinished. Kiri watches him closely, sensing a resonance that feels familiar yet wrong. She recognizes AOA's presence in him, but distorted, filtered through human biology. It frightens her more than open hostility ever could. Nitari keeps her distance. Acceptance does not come instantly, no matter how desperate the moment demanded it. Her grief still sharpens every memory of human interference. Each time Spider speaks, breathes, exists without a mask, it reminds her of everything Pandora has lost. Yet she sees his pain too, the isolation of belonging nowhere fully. The film allows these moments to linger, refusing easy reconciliation. Forgiveness here is not an arc, it is a struggle. Meanwhile, Quaritch's transformation accelerates. Among the Manquan, he sheds remnants of his former restraint. Fire becomes ritual, destruction a form of unity. Varang does not rule through devotion to Awa, but through shared rage. Her people believe Pandora abandoned them, favoring forests and oceans, while leaving volcanic lands to burn. Quaritch understands resentment. He feeds it. Together, they build a philosophy where domination replaces balance, where survival means taking rather than listening. Jake seeks alliances beyond the Mech-Hyena. He travels inland, returning to forests scarred by past battles, places where memory still clings to the trees. Some clans refuse him outright, unwilling to invite destruction again. Others listen, but with caution. Jake is no longer Torek Maktul to them. He is a reminder of what human attention brings. Leadership now requires humility, a lesson Jake struggles to accept as he watches Pandora slip closer to full-scale war. Kiri's connection to Awa weakens further. Meditation brings only fragments, whispers instead of answers. She feels something blocking her, as if the planet itself hesitates to speak. The revelation that Awa created her does not empower her, it isolates her. She wonders if she exists to heal Pandora or to challenge it. That uncertainty mirrors the moon's own instability. A living world confronted with forces it never anticipated. The Manquan strike again, this time targeting sacred groves rather than settlements. Their message is clear. No place is untouchable. Flames consume ancient trees, sending ash into the sky like falling stars. Nature's rage ignites fully. She no longer fights to protect, she fights to punish. Jake sees the change and fears it. Pandora has always demanded balance, and Nature's fury threatens to tip it beyond recovery. Spider is captured once more, not by force, but by choice. He follows a signal only he can sense, drawn toward Varang's territory like gravity. Quaritch anticipates him, not as bait, but as proof. Proof that humanity's future on Pandora no longer requires machines. Spider becomes a symbol rather than a sun, a bridge that could collapse the distance between species entirely. Varang does not torture Spider. She studies him. She sees potential in him that even Quaritch underestimates. Through him, she believes her people could inherit the entire planet, no longer bound to firelands or exile. The danger lies not in violence, but in vision. A vision where Awa is optional, tradition obsolete, and power unrestricted. Jake prepares for war, knowing it will cost everything. Allies gather reluctantly, united more by fear than hope. The Mech-Hyena bring ocean strength inland, an unnatural pairing that reflects the disruption spreading across Pandora. Kiri senses a breaking point approaching. She feels Awa retreating, conserving itself, as if preparing for loss rather than victory. The confrontation unfolds beneath a sky choked with smoke. Fire and water collide, forests steaming as ash falls like rain. Naturi confronts Varang in brutal combat, a clash not just of weapons, but beliefs. Varang fights without reverence, without hesitation. Naturi fights with grief driving every strike. When the battle ends, Varang survives, retreating with Quaritch and Spider, leaving devastation behind. The cost is unbearable. Pandora bleeds. Jake realizes the war cannot be won through strength alone. The enemy no longer comes only from humans or machines. It comes from within Pandora itself, twisted by resentment and opportunity. Fire and Ash does not end with resolution. It ends with realization that the greatest threat to a living world is not invasion, but division. And if Pandora cannot heal its fractures, fire will continue to rise from the ashes. The silence that follows devastation is louder than battle. Ash settles over the forest like gray snow, muting colors, softening sounds, erasing the vibrant pulse that once defined Pandora. Jake walks through the wreckage with a weight of command crushing his chest. Every step feels heavier than the last, as if the planet itself is grieving under his feet. He knows the war has shifted beyond weapons and territory. This is now a war for identity, for the soul of Pandora itself. Naturi moves through the ruins like a ghost. Her eyes burn, but her spirit feels hollow. The forest no longer speaks to her the way it once did. She kneels beside a fallen tree, pressing her forehead to its scorched bark, whispering apologies to Awa, though she no longer knows if Awa listens. Her grief has turned into something sharper, colder, and Jake fears what it is becoming. Spider's captivity is not marked by chains. It is marked by purpose. Varang places him at the heart of her camp, not as a prisoner, but as a symbol. The Manquan watch him with fascination, not hatred. To them, he is proof that humans can change, that Pandora can be claimed without surrendering to Awa's will. Quaritch reinforces this idea daily, shaping Spider's isolation into influence. He tells him that Jake abandoned him, that Naturi will never accept him, that AY never chose him. Each word is planted carefully, like seeds of doubt. Kiri feels Spider's absence like a physical wound. She senses his presence through AWA's network, faint, but distorted, as if his connection has been bent out of shape. Meditation no longer brings clarity. Instead, it brings pain. She collapses during one trance, her body convulsing as visions flood her mind. She sees fire spreading not just across forests, but through veins of living stone beneath Pandora's surface, awakening something ancient and restless. The Mechhyena begin to withdraw their support. They have lost too much already, and the land war pulls them away from their element. Their ocean, once calm and vibrant, now feels distant, as though Pandora itself is pulling them inward. Toward conflict they cannot win. Jake understands their fear, but he cannot stop. There is no retreat left, only resistance or extinction. Quaritch and Varanch accelerate their campaign. Rather than attacking clans directly, they strike at memory. Sacred sites are destroyed, ancestral markings erased, songs silenced by flame. Their goal is not domination alone, but erasure. A world without tradition is easier to reshape. The Manquan believe they are reclaiming what Awa denied them. Quaritch believes he is finishing what humanity started. Spider begins to change, not physically, but spiritually. He stops asking to leave. He stops resisting Varing's teachings. He learns the Manquan language, studies their rituals, listens to their stories of exile and survival. For the first time, he feels needed rather than tolerated. Yet something inside him fractures. Each lesson feels like a betrayal, yet each acceptance feels like relief. Jake launches a desperate counterstrike, targeting Manquan supply routes, disrupting their access to volcanic resources. The operation is successful but costly. Lives are lost, including young warriors who had never fought before. The aftermath shakes Jake to his core. Leadership no longer feels like purpose. It feels like sacrifice without end. Naturi grows colder toward him, blaming him for dragging their family into endless war. Their bond strains under grief, guilt, and the weight of their losses. Kira's visions intensify. She begins speaking in fragmented phrases, repeating words she does not understand. Moat listens closely, recognizing ancient language no longer spoken. It describes something buried beneath Pandora's surface, a force not governed by Awa, older than memory, born of the planet's earliest trauma. Kiri realizes Awa is not silent. Awa is afraid. Spider finally confronts Quaritch, demanding the truth. Quaritch does not lie. He tells Spider exactly what he is, where he came from, and why he was created. He tells him humanity never wanted a son, only a tool. He frames Jake's compassion as weakness, Naturi's hatred as proof. He offers Spider a choice: remain a bridge between worlds, or become a weapon that reshapes them. Spider does not answer, but he does not walk away. Varang prepares for something larger than war. She begins a ritual not meant to honor Awa, but to awaken the buried force Kiri has seen. She believes Pandora's pain itself can be harnessed, weaponized, transformed into power. Quaritch supports her, not fully understanding the scale of what she intends, but trusting destruction more than balance. Jake receives word of Spider's involvement and feels betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Nateri reacts with fury, declaring Spider lost, corrupted, no longer their concern. Kiri refuses to accept this. She insists Spider is still alive within himself, that his connection to Awa, however twisted, remains. Jake is torn between hope and resignation, between leadership and fatherhood. The awakening begins beneath a volcano sacred to the Manquen. The ground trembles, not with eruption, but with movement. Ancient stone shifts, revealing a vast network of living crystal veins, pulsing with dark energy. The sky darkens unnaturally, clouds spiraling inward as if drawn by gravity itself. Animals flee in terror, sensing imbalance long before the Na'vi do. Kiri feels the surge instantly. She collapses again, this time screaming, her body burning with light and shadow. Awa floods her mind with images of Pandora's birth, of ancient destruction that nearly shattered the planet, of the delicate balance that was rebuilt over millennia. This force was sealed away, not destroyed, because Awa could not control it. It was pain made alive, trauma fossilized into power. Jake rallies every remaining ally. Clen's long silent answer his call, not out of loyalty, but desperation. Even the Metkaina return, drawn by something larger than war. Nateri joins without hesitation, her rage now focused, sharpened into resolve. The battlefield shifts from forests and oceans to the heart of Pandora itself. Spider stands at the center of the ritual, not restrained, but surrounded by Manquen warriors chanting in unison. Varang believes he is the key, the final bridge between humanity's ambition and Pandora's buried power. Spider feels the energy surge through him, feels the planet's pain collide with his own. He understands then that he is not just a bridge, he is a choice. Quaritch watches with awe and unease. This is beyond military conquest. This is rewriting existence. For the first time, he hesitates, not out of mercy, but out of uncertainty. He realizes that some forces do not submit, they consume. Jake and his allies arrive as the ritual reaches its peak. The ground splits open, releasing a wave of energy that knocks warriors to their knees. The air vibrates, reality itself trembling. Nateri charges forward, cutting through Manquen ranks, driven by fury and desperation. Jake follows, his heart pounding not with rage, but fear. He sees Spider standing within the storm and understands what is at stake. Kiri breaks free from her collapse and runs toward the ritual site, guided by Awa's fragmented voice. She calls out to Spider, her voice cutting through chaos, reaching something human within him. Spider hears her, he feels her, and for the first time since his capture, he remembers who he was, not what he was meant to become. Varang commands him to continue. Quaritch orders him to step back. Spider does neither. Instead, he steps forward, into the heart of the energy, toward the source of Pandora's pain. He realizes he can either become a conduit for destruction, or a shield against it. There is no middle ground. Spider reaches out, not to control the power, but to absorb it, to carry it, to contain it within himself. The energy surges violently, tearing through the ritual, collapsing structures, throwing warriors aside. Varang screams as her vision crumbles. Quaritch watches in shock as Spider's body becomes a living conduit, glowing with unstable light. Kiri reaches him just as the energy threatens to tear him apart. She places her hands on his chest, channeling Awa's light into him, balancing pain with connection, trauma with memory. The energy stabilizes, not destroyed, but contained. Pandora exhales, the sky clearing, the ground settling, the ancient force sealed once more, but now bound to Spider. The battlefield falls silent. Varang retreats, wounded but alive, her belief shattered but her hatred intact. Quaritch disappears into the chaos, neither defeated nor victorious, but changed. Jake rushes to Spider, who collapses into his arms, exhausted, but alive. Nateri watches from a distance, her expression unreadable, her grief colliding with reluctant gratitude. Kiri weeps, holding Spider's hand, feeling his pulse, his presence, his humanity. She realizes that Awa did not create her to protect Pandora alone. Spider wakes slowly, as if surfacing from deep water. The first thing he feels is weight, not physical, but emotional, like the gravity of an entire planet pressing gently against his chest. His body aches, but his mind feels clearer than it has in months. He hears voices before he opens his eyes, familiar ones, layered with concern and disbelief. When he finally looks up, he sees Jake's face, worn and tired, and Kiri's eyes, shining with relief. He tries to sit up and immediately realizes something is different. The world feels louder, brighter, heavier. Every sound carries meaning. Every movement vibrates through his bones. He can feel the ground beneath him, not as a surface, but as something alive, breathing slowly. Kiri senses the shift instantly and takes his hand, her expression a mixture of wonder and fear. She understands without words that Spider has changed. Jake does not know what to say. He has led warriors, fought wars, faced extinction, but nothing prepared him for this. His son is alive, but not untouched. The power Spider absorbed hums beneath his skin, invisible yet unmistakable. Jake's first instinct is protection, but he realizes he no longer knows what that means. Naturi keeps a distance. She watches from the edge of the camp, her posture rigid, her eyes guarded. Part of her still sees Spider as the child of her enemy, the reminder of loss she cannot fully forgive. Yet another part, one she tries desperately to silence, feels gratitude that he saved their world when others failed. That conflict tears quietly at her spirit. The clan begins to whisper. Some see Spider as a blessing, a living symbol of Pandora's resilience. Others see him as a warning, proof that forces beyond our now walk among them. No one knows what he truly is. Spider himself does not know. He only knows he feels connected in ways he never imagined, and disconnected in ways he never expected. Kiri spends hours with him, guiding him through meditation, teaching him to listen to Awa without being consumed by her voice. Spider struggles at first. The connection is overwhelming, like standing beneath a waterfall and trying not to drown. But slowly, with Kiri's help, he learns to breathe within it, to feel without being lost. Jake begins preparing for the next phase of the war, though he does not yet know what it will look like. Varang has retreated, but her forces are not defeated. Quaritch has vanished, but Jake knows better than to believe that means peace. The silence after battle is always temporary. Still, for the first time in a long while, Jake allows himself a moment to stand still. Naturi eventually approaches Spider. The moment is quiet, fragile, like stepping onto thin ice. She does not apologize. She does not forgive. But she kneels beside him and studies his face, searching for something familiar. Spider meets her gaze without fear, without defensiveness. He simply waits. You saved our world, she says at last, her voice low, steady, restrained. Spider nods, unsure how to respond. I didn't know how else to stop it. Naturi looks away briefly, as if steadying herself. Sometimes the only way to stop destruction is to become something different. She leaves without another word. But the distance between them feels slightly smaller. Kiri's visions continue, though they shift in tone. Where once she saw destruction, now she sees rebuilding. Forests growing where ash once fell. Rivers finding new paths. Life adapting, reshaping itself, not back to what it was, but forward into something new. She realizes Pandora is not returning to balance. It is evolving. Spider begins to explore his new senses. He can feel when the forest is wounded. He can sense fear in animals before they flee. He can hear distant echoes through the ground, not as sound, but as emotional resonance. At times, it feels like too much, like the world's pain is now his burden. Other times, it feels like purpose. Jake struggles with how to treat him. He wants to be a father, but he now feels like a guardian, standing beside something larger than himself. Their conversations are awkward, filled with pauses and unspoken questions. Jake worries about what Spider might become. Spider worries about what Jake expects him to be. Meanwhile, Varang regroups in the shadows. Her belief has not been destroyed, only wounded. She interprets the ritual's failure not as proof of Awa's power, but as evidence that Spider interfered with destiny. To her, he is not a savior, but a thief who stole Pandora's transformation. Her hatred crystallizes into obsession. Quaritch resurfaces quietly, gathering remnants of his former command, forging new alliances with those who believe in control over coexistence. He no longer seeks to conquer Pandora outright. Instead, he seeks leverage. And Spider, with his connection to the planet's deepest force, becomes his ultimate target. The first sign of danger comes not through battle, but through disappearance. Small clans vanish from the edges of the forest. Outposts go silent. Sacred sites are found disturbed, not destroyed, but altered, as if something is being tested rather than erased. Jake senses strategy, not chaos. Spider begins experiencing dreams that are not his own. He sees visions of Varang's rituals, of Quaritch's preparations, of forces gathering beyond the horizon. He does not know whether these are memories carried by the energy he absorbed, or warnings sent by Awa. Either way, he knows they are real. Kiri believes Spider's connection has expanded beyond Awa's network, tapping into the buried force he contained. She fears that power is not dormant, merely restrained, and that others will try to unlock it again. Spider feels this too. The energy within him stirs at times, restless, as if responding to distant echoes. Jake calls a council, gathering leaders from every allied clan. The mood is tense, uncertain. Some demand Spider be hidden. Others demand he be used. A few even suggest he be restrained, fearing what he might become if left unchecked. Jake listens to every voice, but his decision is clear. Spider is not a weapon. He is family. That declaration is not met with universal approval, but it is met with silence. Jake's authority, earned through sacrifice and survival, still holds weight. For now, Naturi stands beside him, her presence signaling something unspoken. Though she does not fully trust Spider, she trusts Jake's judgment. That, for her, is enough. Spider struggles with guilt. He feels responsible for the world's pain, not because he caused it, but because he now feels it. He wonders if he deserves rest when Pandora still suffers. He wonders if he deserves a family when so many have lost theirs. These thoughts haunt him, growing heavier with each passing day. One night, Spider leaves the camp alone. Not to escape, but to think. He walks into the forest, guided not by sight, but by feeling. He stops at a clearing he has never seen before, where the ground pulses faintly with energy. He realizes this place lies directly above where the ancient force was sealed. The ground remembers. Kiri finds him there. She does not scold him. She does not ask him to return. She simply sits beside him. "I don't know who I am anymore," Spider says quietly. Kiri looks at him, her eyes soft. "You're someone who chose life when destruction was easier. That doesn't tell me what to do." "No," she admits. "But it tells you who you are." Spider watches the forest breathe around them. For the first time since the ritual, he allows himself to feel peace, however fragile. That peace does not last. The next morning, alarms echo through the camp. A scouting party returns wounded, reporting Manquan forces moving through sacred corridors, previously thought inaccessible. Jake realizes Varang has found another path, another way to reach Pandora's core. The war has resumed, not in open battle, but in strategic infiltration. Spider feels the buried force stir violently for the first time since the ritual. He doubles over, pain searing through his chest. Kiri rushes to him, stabilizing his connection, but the message is clear. Someone is trying to awaken what he sealed. Jake realizes the battlefield has shifted again, not across land or sea, but through Spider himself. Varang does not want Pandora destroyed. She wants it reborn. Quaritch does not want Pandora alive. He wants it controlled. And Spider stands between both visions. Jake looks at his son, not as a soldier, not as a symbol, but as a boy who never asked to carry the weight of a world. Yet here he is, carrying it anyway. The question is no longer whether war will come. The question is whether Spider will survive it. The camp shifts into motion with quiet urgency. No one panics, but no one relaxes either. Warriors sharpen blades that have already seen too much blood. Scouts move through the forest with shadows for companions. Healers prepare for wounds they hope never arrive. Jake watches it all with a familiar heaviness, knowing that preparation is often the calmest phase of war. Spider is kept close, not because he is weak, but because he has become something essential. Kiri remains near him constantly, her presence grounding him when the energy inside him surges. She feels his pain as if it were her own, and he feels her fear when his connection spikes. Their bond deepens, no longer just familial, but spiritual. Naturi trains harder than ever. Every movement carries grief, anger, and discipline woven together. Her hatred toward humans has not vanished, but it has transformed into something colder, sharper, more controlled. She no longer lashes out emotionally. Instead, she channels her pain into precision. Jake recognizes this shift and worries not about her strength, but about what remains of her softness. Jake meets with clan leaders in private, weighing impossible choices. Should Spider be hidden deep within the forest, protected but isolated? Should he be moved constantly, never allowing enemies to track him? Or should he stand openly, a symbol of resistance, daring Varang and Quaritch to come? Each option carries risk, and none guarantees safety. Spider listens quietly from a distance, absorbing every word. He feels like an object being discussed rather than a person being understood. That realization hurts more than the physical pain he feels when the buried force stirs. He knows they are trying to protect him, but he also knows protection can become imprisonment. He speaks to Jake that night, away from others. "I don't want to be hidden," he says. "If I'm the reason they're coming, then hiding me only delays what's already happening." Jake looks at him, struggling to see the boy he once rescued beneath the weight of the power he now carries. "You're not the reason," Jake says quietly. "They're the reason. You're just in the way. Then let me stay in the way." Jake has no answer to that. The first direct attack comes at dawn. A Manquan scouting group breaches the forest perimeter, moving with unsettling coordination. They avoid confrontation, slipping past defenses with precision rather than force. Their goal is not battle. It is mapping. Jake realizes Varang is charting a path to Spider, testing weaknesses, observing reactions. This is no longer a war of territory. It is a hunt. Kiri senses it too. She feels eyes on the forest, not physical ones, but emotional, intent-driven. The forest itself grows uneasy, its rhythms disrupted, its creatures restless. Even Awa's presence feels strained, as if something is interfering with her ability to respond. Spider feels the buried force vibrate faintly, like a distant thunderstorm rumbling beneath his bones. He knows this sensation. It is not pain yet. It is anticipation. That night, he dreams of fire and ash again. He sees Varang standing before a great chasm, chanting not to destroy, but to awaken. He sees Quaritch watching from the shadows, calculating, waiting. He sees himself standing between them, uncertain which future his existence enables. He wakes drenched in sweat, his heart racing. Kiri senses it immediately and rushes to him. He tells her everything. She listens without interruption, her face pale but determined. "They're not trying to break you," she says finally. "They're trying to use you." Spider nods. "I know." Jake hears about the dream and calls another council. This time, the discussion is more urgent, more divided. Some leaders believe Spider must be sent far away, even off-world if possible. Others argue that removing him from Pandora would weaken AOA's network, possibly destabilizing the balance he helped restore. A few suggest Spider should be trained, weaponized if necessary, to face what's coming. Jake rejects the last option immediately. He's not a weapon, he repeats. He's a son. But he's also something more. One leader counters. Jake meets their gaze. So are all of us. The argument stalls, unresolved. Meanwhile, Varang moves closer. Her forces begin manipulating sacred sites, not destroying them, but altering their energy flow. Rerouting Awa's pathways like veins, redirected toward a wound. Each alteration weakens Awa's influence, making it easier for Varang to access the buried force. Quaritch provides the technology to amplify these disruptions. Together, they create artificial nodes that interfere with Pandora's natural balance, effectively dimming Awa's presence in targeted areas. The forest begins to suffer. Plants wither unnaturally. Animals grow disoriented. Sacred spaces fall silent. Spider feels each disruption like a tightening knot in his chest. His connection to Pandora becomes painful, not because of Awa, but because something is blocking her voice. It feels like trying to breathe through a closing door. He collapses one afternoon while training with Kiri, pain searing through his body. Notori rushes to his side, her expression tight with concern. She refuses to name. Jake lifts him gently, carrying him back to shelter as if he were still a child. Healers attempt to ease his pain, but they quickly realize it is not physical injury. It is resonance, feedback from the buried force, responding to external manipulation. Kiri tries to stabilize his connection, but the interference makes it difficult. The forest's voice feels distant, muffled, like sound underwater. Jake realizes this cannot continue. Spider cannot survive prolonged disruption, and Varang knows it. That night, Spider speaks again. This time, not to Jake alone, but to Natri and Kiri as well. "They're using me as a key," he says. "If they weaken Awa enough, they won't need me willingly. They'll force the connection." Natri's eyes flash with anger. "Then we destroy them before they reach you." "That won't stop it," Spider says quietly. "They've already started. Even if Varang dies, the technology remains. The damage is already happening." Kiri looks at him, fear and realization dawning together. "What are you saying?" Spider hesitates, then meets their gaze. "I'm saying the only way to stop them is to confront the buried force directly. Not through me, but with me." Jake listens in silence, his jaw tightening. "You already sealed it." "I sealed it temporarily," Spider replies. "Not destroyed it. Not healed it. It's still there, unstable, wounded, and now others are trying to control it. The longer it stays like that, the more dangerous it becomes. And you think you can fix it?" Natri asks, her voice sharp. "I don't know," Spider admits. "But I'm the only one who can even try." The room falls silent. Jake feels like the ground beneath him has shifted. He has fought wars, led clans, faced extinction. But nothing feels heavier than this decision. Letting Spider go toward danger is unthinkable. Preventing him might doom Pandora. This isn't your responsibility, Jake says firmly. You're a child. Spider looks at him, not with defiance, but with sadness. I stopped being just a child the moment I absorbed that power. Natri looks away, her hands clenched. Kiri watches Spider, tears glistening in her eyes. Jake exhales slowly. If we do this, we do it together. Spider shakes his head gently. No. If too many of you go, Varang will attack the camp. This has to be quiet. Precise. Then I'm going, Kiri says immediately. No, Spider replies. Your connection to Awa makes you too vulnerable to interference. If they block her again, you'll be trapped inside the disruption. Then who goes with you? Natri asks. Spider hesitates. Jake's heart tightens. Why me? Because you know how to survive impossible situations, Spider says. And because you'll pull me back if I go too far. Jake does not respond immediately. He looks at Spider, really looks at him, and realizes the boy is not asking for permission. He is asking for trust. Natri steps forward. If he goes, she says, her voice steady despite the storm beneath it. He does not go without us knowing he will return. Jake nods slowly. We planned this. We do it right. Kiri reaches for Spider's hand. Promise me you'll come back. Spider squeezes her hand gently. I promise I'll try. And in that promise, fragile and uncertain, the next phase of the war begins. The journey begins before sunrise. The forest is quiet in the way it only becomes before something irreversible. Jake, Spider, and a small escort move silently through the trees, leaving behind the camp, the family, and the fragile sense of safety they have been clinging to. Natri watches them disappear. Her heart heavy with fear, she refuses to show. Kiri stands beside her, eyes closed, whispering a prayer to Awa that sounds more like a plea. Spider walks at the center, his movements steady but his thoughts racing. He can feel the buried force pulling at him like gravity, subtle but constant. It is no longer just a presence. It is a destination. Jake keeps close, scanning the forest for any sign of Manquan scouts. He trusts Spider's instincts, but does not trust Varang's patience. He knows she will not strike blindly. She will wait until the moment offers maximum control. As they move deeper into restricted territory, the forest begins to change. The air grows warmer, the trees thin. The ground darkens with volcanic ash. The sounds of wildlife fade, replaced by an unsettling stillness. Spider feels it immediately, the buried force responding to proximity like a wound reacting to pressure. They reach the outer perimeter of the disruption zone by midday. The ground pulses faintly beneath their feet, not visibly, but energetically, like a low-frequency hum vibrating through the bones. Jake feels it too, though not with the same intensity. Spider stops suddenly. They've already been here, he says. Jake studies the area and notices the signs. Disturbed earth, scorched roots, artificial structures half hidden beneath ash. Varang's forces have been manipulating the terrain, not just spiritually, but physically, carving channels toward the buried force like veins leading to a heart. Jake signals the escort to hold position. We go alone from here. The warriors hesitate, but Jake's expression leaves no room for argument. They retreat, leaving Jake and Spider standing at the edge of something neither fully understands. The deeper they move, the more Spider's connection intensifies. His breathing grows shallow, his steps uneven. Jake slows their pace, offering support without drawing attention to it. You don't have to prove anything, Jake says quietly. I'm not, Spider replies. I'm just trying to survive what's already inside me. They reach the central chamber by dusk. It is not a physical chamber in the traditional sense, but a convergence of energy. A place where the forest's roots spiral downward into a massive subterranean cavern. The air here feels heavy, charged, like the atmosphere before lightning strikes. Spider feels the buried force surge, not aggressively, but desperately, like something waking after a long sleep and finding itself wounded. He kneels instinctively, pressing his hands to the ground. The connection activates instantly, not with Awa, but with something deeper, something older. The ground beneath him glows faintly, veins of light pulsing through the ash-stained earth. Jake watches in awe and fear as Spider's neural queue extends, not into a tree, but into the ground itself, threading through roots and rock toward the heart of the buried force. Spider gasps as the connection forms. Pain floods his senses, not his own, but something vast and ancient. He feels the buried force's suffering, its fragmentation, its corruption. It is not evil. It is wounded, broken by centuries of imbalance and recent interference. Jake hears Spider cry out and moves closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Talk to me," he says. "It's not what they think," Spider whispers. "It's not power, it's pain." The buried force responds, not with words, but with memories. Spider sees visions of Pandora's early formation, of Hawa's birth, of the buried force as her twin, not her opposite. Together, they once maintained balance, one nurturing life, the other regulating energy flow, preventing overload and collapse. But something had gone wrong. The buried force had been overwhelmed, corrupted by excess, forced into isolation. Awa sealed it away, not out of fear, but out of necessity, hoping time would heal what she could not. Instead, it festered. Spider feels its loneliness, its confusion, its rage at being abandoned, misunderstood, manipulated. Varing's interference has reawakened, not its strength, but its suffering, pushing it toward instability. Jake watches Spider tremble, sensing the weight of what he is experiencing, but unable to share it. "What's happening?" he asks. "It's broken," Spider replies, tears streaming down his face. "And it doesn't know how to stop hurting." The ground begins to shake subtly. Not violently, but unevenly, as if the earth itself is shifting uncomfortably. Spider realizes the buried force is trying to connect to Awa, but cannot. The artificial disruptions have blocked the pathways. It is trapped, isolated, spiraling. "I need to reconnect them," Spider says. Jake's heart sinks. "How?" "I don't know," Spider admits. "But I can feel where the blockage is." Varang's technology has created a wall between them. Jake looks around, spotting the faint glow of artificial nodes embedded into the cavern walls, humming with disruptive energy. "Those things." "Yes," Spider says. "They're cutting Awa off from this place." Jake draws his knife. "Then we destroy them." "No," Spider says urgently. "If you break them all at once, the energy surge could destabilize the entire area. It needs to be gradual, controlled." Jake nods, trusting Spider's instincts. Together, they move through the chamber, carefully disabling each node, one by one, reducing the interference slowly, allowing the natural flow to return without triggering collapse. As they work, Spider's pain lessens slightly. The buried force responds, its energy stabilizing in small increments. The ground's vibrations soften, becoming rhythmic rather than erratic. Just as they begin to see progress, a familiar voice echoes through the cavern. "You're doing my work for me." Jake turns, weapon raised, to see Quaritch emerging from the shadows, flanked by Manquan warriors. Varang steps forward beside him, her eyes fixed on Spider with unsettling calm. Jake positions himself between them and Spider. "You're not taking him." Varang tilts her head. "We are not here to take, we are here to awaken." Spider looks at her, his voice trembling but steady. "You don't know what you're waking." "I know exactly what it is," Varang replies. "A force strong enough to end Awa's dominance, to free our people from her control." Jake scoffs. "You're not freeing anyone. You're just replacing one power with another." Varang's gaze hardens. "You misunderstand. Awa is not balance. She is stagnation. We seek evolution." Spider shakes his head. "You're wrong. It's not evolution. It's collapse." Quaritch steps forward. "Kid, you don't get to decide the future of an entire world." Spider meets his gaze. "Neither do you." Quaritch raises his weapon, aiming at Spider. Jake reacts instantly, stepping in front of him, his own weapon raised. Varang gestures for Quaritch to lower it. "He is necessary," she says. "Alive." Jake's eyes flick to Spider. "Run," he whispers. Spider hesitates, torn between escape and responsibility. "If I leave, they'll activate it." Varang smiles faintly. "You already have." The ground trembles violently now. The buried force surges, reacting to the confrontation, its energy spiking dangerously. Spider feels its panic, its fear, its confusion. He realizes that his presence alone is enough to destabilize it further if he remains disconnected from Awa. "I need to finish this," Spider says urgently. "Right now." Jake grabs his arm. "They'll kill you." "They won't," Spider replies. "They need me." Varang steps closer, her expression unreadable. "We offer you purpose," she says. "Join us. Together, we can reshape Pandora." Spider looks at her, then at Jake, then closes his eyes. "I already have purpose," he says. "And it's not yours." He reconnects fully, not to the buried force alone, but to both forces simultaneously. He reaches for Awa, through the thinning barrier, feeling her presence return faintly, then stronger, then overwhelming. The energy surge knocks everyone backward. The cavern fills with light. Not blinding, but vast. Like standing inside a heartbeat. Spider screams. Not in pain, but in exertion. His body straining to channel energy beyond human limits. Jake watches helplessly as Spider becomes the bridge between two ancient forces. His small frame holding the weight of Pandora's balance. Varang shouts commands, but her voice is lost in the roar of energy. Quaritch attempts to advance, but is thrown backward by the force wave. The buried force responds, its rage softening into confusion, then into something like relief. Awa's presence envelops it, not in dominance, but in compassion. The cavern begins to settle. The light fades to a steady glow. The ground's vibrations slow to a calm pulse. Spider collapses. Jake rushes to his side, lifting him into his arms. Spider, Spider. Spider's eyes flutter open weakly. Did it work? He whispers. Jake swallows hard, tears in his eyes. I think so. Varang watches from a distance, her expression no longer confident, but shaken. What have you done? She demands. Spider looks at her, exhausted but resolute. I gave Pandora a choice. The cavern is silent after the storm, the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Dust hangs in the air, glowing faintly in the residual light, like suspended ash that refuses to fall. Jake holds Spider close, his breathing shallow but steady, his heartbeat strong beneath Jake's palm. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, the ground feels calm. Not peaceful, exactly, but stable, balanced. Varang stands motionless, her warriors uncertain behind her. Quaritch struggles to his feet, shaken, his weapon lowered not from mercy but from disbelief. None of them expected this outcome. None of them expected Spider to change the very nature of the power they sought. What did you do? Varang asks again, quieter now, less command, and more confusion. Spider lifts his head weakly, meeting her gaze. I listened, he says. To both sides. Varang studies him, searching for deception, for weakness, for any trace of manipulation. She finds none. What she finds instead unsettles her more deeply. Sincerity. You've restored Awa's control, she says coldly. No, Spider replies. I restored her connection. Jake watches Varang carefully, sensing the shift in her posture. Not surrender, but uncertainty. You said you wanted evolution, Jake says. This is it. Growth without destruction. Varang's eyes flick toward the stabilized cavern, the faint rhythmic pulse of energy flowing through the roots beneath them. You call this growth, she says. I call it delay. Quaritch scoffs. Whatever you call it, it doesn't help us. Jake turns to him. It helps Pandora. Quaritch smirks. Pandora doesn't pay the bills. Spider's grip tightens slightly on Jake's shoulder. It's not about money, he says. It's about survival. For everyone. Quaritch shakes his head. Kid, you've been living in the woods too long. Before Jake can respond, the cavern trembles again, but this time differently. Not violently, purposefully. The ground beneath them shifts, opening a new path deeper into the earth. Not collapsing, but unfolding like a slow breath. Spider feels the movement before he sees it. It's not done, he says. Jake looks down at him. What isn't the connection? Spider replies. It's stable, but it's not complete. Iowa and the buried force are still separate. They're talking again, but they're not whole. Varang's eyes narrow. And what happens if they become whole? Spider hesitates. Pandora changes. Quaritch laughs. That's a vague threat. Spider shakes his head. Not a threat. A fact. Jake tightens his grip on Spider. What kind of change? I don't know, Spider admits. But it's not destruction. It's transformation. Varang steps closer, her voice lowering. Transformation is not always gentle. No, Spider agrees. But stagnation is never safe. The path beneath them continues to open, revealing a vast underground network of roots and glowing energy streams, more intricate than anything Jake has seen before. This is not just a chamber, it is a system. A circulatory network beneath Pandora's skin. Jake feels a deep sense of awe, mixed with fear. This is the heart of the planet. Spider nods faintly. Or one of them. Varang looks at the unfolding pathways with a mixture of fascination and dread. This changes everything, she says. Yes, Spider replies. That's the point. Quaritch glances between them, calculating. So what now? We just walk away and let this thing reshape the world. Jake meets his gaze. No, we protect it. Quaritch smirks. From who? Jake's eyes flick to Varang, then back to Quaritch. From anyone who thinks they can control it. Varang's lips curl into a faint, bitter smile. Including Awa. Spider looks at her. Including Awa, if necessary. That surprises everyone, including Jake. You'd stand against her. Jake asks quietly. I'd stand for balance, Spider replies. Not dominance. Not abandonment. Balance. The cavern pulses again, stronger this time, and a soft, resonant sound fills the air. Not a roar, but a tone, deep and harmonic, like the planet itself is singing. Spider closes his eyes, tears forming. It's calling me. Jake's heart tightens. Calling you where? Deeper, Spider whispers. To finish the connection, Varing steps forward sharply. No. Spider opens his eyes. You can't stop it. Varing's gaze hardens. I can kill you. Jake steps between them instantly. You won't. Quaritch raises his weapon slightly, uncertain. Let's all calm down. Spider looks at Varing with unexpected gentleness. You don't have to fight this. Varing laughs bitterly. Fight is all I have ever known. Spider nods. Then let this be the first thing you don't fight. For a moment, no one speaks. The cavern hums. The earth waits. Varing's eyes flicker, betraying a conflict deeper than ideology. She has spent her life resisting Awa, rejecting what she sees as control, as limitation. But this is different. This is not Awa asserting power. This is Awa reconnecting with something she once lost. Varing lowers her weapon slightly. If I let you go, she says slowly, and Pandora changes in ways I cannot control, you will have betrayed everything I stand for. Spider meets her gaze. Or I'll have given you a world that doesn't need your war. Varing's hand trembles. Just once, then steadies. Go. Jake exhales sharply, relief flooding through him. Varing, she cuts him off. This does not make us allies. Jake nods. I wouldn't expect it to. Spider gently pulls away from Jake's hold, standing unsteadily on his own feet. He looks at Jake, his eyes filled with gratitude, fear, and something else Jake cannot quite name. You don't have to come, Spider says. Jake's jaw tightens. I'm not letting you go alone. You can't come, Spider replies softly. Not where I'm going. Jake feels a sharp pang of helplessness. You're my son. Spider smiles faintly. I know. The ground beneath Spider's feet glows brighter, and the roots begin to shift, forming a natural path downward. Spider steps onto it, the energy responding instantly to his presence, stabilizing beneath his weight. Jake reaches out, then stops himself, realizing that holding Spider back would do more harm than letting him go. Come back, Jake says quietly. Spider looks back one last time. I will. Then he turns and descends. The light dims as Spider moves deeper, swallowed gradually by the planet's living structure. Jake watches until he can no longer see him, his heart aching with a fear he has not felt since losing Net. Varing watches too, her expression unreadable. Quaritch shifts uncomfortably, clearly unsettled by the loss of control over the situation. This is a mistake, Quaritch mutters. Jake turns to him sharply. Everything you've done here has been a mistake. Quaritch smirks. Funny. I was about to say the same about you. Jake ignores him and turns back toward the path. We need to leave, he says to Varing, before this place collapses or changes further. Varing nods slowly. Yes, this place is no longer ours. They begin the ascent, moving cautiously through the shifting cavern, the ground adjusting beneath their steps as if guiding them out. As they move, Jake feels something strange. Not fear, not awe, but connection. A faint thread of awareness, subtle and distant, linking him to Spider even as the boy descends far beyond reach. He feels Spider's presence like a distant heartbeat, faint but steady. Outside, the forest feels different. The air seems clearer, lighter, charged with possibility. The plants glow more brightly. The wildlife moves with renewed energy. Even the ash-stained trees of the Manquan territories seem to breathe easier. Varing looks around, her expression shifting from suspicion to reluctant wonder. What has he done? She whispers. Jake doesn't answer immediately. He doesn't have the words. He reminded Pandora who she is. Jake finally says. Varing studies him. And who is she? Jake looks up at the sky, at the bioluminescent glow, spreading slowly across the horizon, brighter than it was before. Alive, he says. Quaritch watches the sky too, his face dark. Alive doesn't mean safe. Jake turns to him. Neither does control. Quaritch shakes his head. This isn't over. Jake meets his gaze. No, but it's changed. They part ways at the edge of the forest. Varing and her warriors retreat toward their volcanic lands, quieter than before, their certainty shaken. Quaritch and his remaining forces withdraw toward their installations, already calculating their next move. Jake returns to the Metkiina camp alone. Natri senses something is wrong before she sees him. She runs to him, her eyes searching. Where is Spider? Jake hesitates, then speaks the truth. He's helping Pandora. Naturi's face tightens with fear. What does that mean? Jake swallows hard. It means he went somewhere we can't follow. Kiri steps forward, her eyes widening with understanding. He's connecting deeper, she whispers. Yes, Jake says. Deeper than any of us. Naturi's hands tremble. Will he come back? Jake looks at the forest, feeling Spider's faint presence like a distant echo. He promised he would. Naturi turns away, struggling to contain her fear, her anger, her grief. Kiri places a hand on her arm. He's not gone, she says softly. He's just elsewhere. Jake watches the horizon, his heart heavy, but also strangely hopeful. Not a weapon, not a war. A bridge. The aftermath of the RDA flagship's destruction left the battlefield in chaos. Jake Sully, his body exhausted yet driven by determination, surveyed the devastation around him. The Na'vi clans had fought valiantly, but the Manquan and Quaritch's forces had inflicted heavy losses. The air was filled with smoke, ash, and the distant cries of those who had survived. Naturi, holding her infant daughter Prill close, moved carefully among the wounded, her gaze fierce and protective. Spider, still recovering from the perilous encounter, lingered beside Kiri, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe at the display of Pandoran power. Despite the victory, the sense of sorrow remained palpable. Every clan had suffered, and the cost of survival weighed heavily on their spirits. Quaritch, though injured and thrown into the magnetic flux, had survived once more, his determination unbroken. He watched Jake in the Na'vi with cold calculation, silently formulating his next move. Varang, the leader of the Manquan, despite her defeat, retained a flicker of defiance. The clash had demonstrated the strength of the Na'vi and the unpredictability of Ah's influence. Yet she contemplated the ways to exploit future vulnerabilities. Among the Tulkun, the elder whales mourned the losses within their kin, while also expressing cautious hope for continued protection under Jake's leadership. The balance between human technology and Pandoran connection remained precarious, and the lessons of the battle had been seared into the memory of every observer. Kiri, still deeply connected to Aiwa, guided Spider to the underwater spirit trees, where he could finally comprehend the full extent of the Na'vi heritage he had inherited. The spirits of the deceased Na'vi appeared around them, offering silent acknowledgement of Spider's perseverance and newfound bond. Grace Augustine's presence, serene yet instructive, provided Spider with the guidance necessary to integrate fully into the Na'vi culture. The underwater forest shimmered with life and energy, a testament to Awa's enduring power and the intricate connections between every living being on Pandora. As Spider's connection strengthened, he could sense the emotions, histories, and wisdom of those who had come before, solidifying his place among the Na'vi. The families, though battered and scarred, began to regroup. Jake and Naturi conferred quietly, acknowledging the challenges that lay ahead. The Tulkun, now alert to the persistence of human threats, coordinated with the Na'vi clans to ensure the protection of the remaining wildlife and resources. Loak, having faced the perils of the ocean and the predatory forces that sought to exploit it, reflected on the responsibilities that accompanied strength and leadership. Saraya remained close, providing both support and companionship, while Tuktairi displayed a resilience that belied her youth. The unity forged in battle solidified alliances, strengthened familial bonds, and reinforced the shared determination to protect Pandora at all costs. Despite the destruction wrought by Quaritch and the Manquan, hope persisted. Awa's influence, though subtle, guided each action, each decision, and each reconciliation. The Na'vi, in communion with the spirits, the Tulkun, and the land itself, reaffirmed their commitment to the preservation of life on Pandora. Kiri, as a bridge between the human-born Spider and the Na'vi, became a symbol of potential harmony and understanding. The journey ahead promised further conflict and trials, but the lessons of courage, connection, and sacrifice had been indelibly etched into the hearts of all who survived. The calm was short-lived, as intelligence of renewed RDA activity reached the Metkayana village. Jake Sully convened a council with Naturi, Loak, and other clan leaders to assess the situation. Satellite scans and scattered reports confirmed that the humans were regrouping, gathering resources for another campaign. The Na'vi understood that complacency could prove fatal. The memory of past losses lingered, urging them to prepare strategically, while the physical strength of their clans remained formidable. The challenge lay in anticipating human tactics and protecting the fragile ecosystems that had been so easily damaged before. Every decision carried weight. Every precaution held potential consequences for the lives of both the Na'vi and the creatures they shared Pandora with. Spider demonstrated remarkable growth, continuing his training with Kiri. His unique abilities, derived from his hybrid physiology, allowed him to sense subtle changes in the environment and communicate with wildlife in ways others could not. Each lesson reinforced his understanding of the symbiotic relationship between the Na'vi and their world. Through patience and observation, he learned to anticipate the movements of both predator and prey, mastering the delicate balance required for survival on Pandora. His presence strengthened the clan's confidence, serving as a bridge between human ingenuity and Na'vi tradition, a reminder that adaptability was a crucial asset in the ever-shifting dynamics of their world. Meanwhile, Varing solidified her influence over the Manquan, encouraging loyalty through fear and ambition. She maintained control of advanced weaponry previously supplied by the RDA, preparing for what she anticipated would be a decisive confrontation. Quaritch, always calculating, reinforced the alliance, exploiting the Manquan's fervor while ensuring that their strategic actions served his broader objective of revenge against Jake Sully. The combination of human ingenuity and tribal cunning posed a significant threat, and the Na'vi knew that victory would demand more than brute force. It required foresight, unity, and mastery of both land and sea. Within the village, Loak and Syria took on responsibilities that extended beyond physical protection. They mediated disputes, coordinated training exercises for younger Na'vi, and ensured that cultural traditions remained intact, even amidst preparation for war. Their leadership fostered a sense of continuity and trust, reinforcing bonds that might otherwise weaken under the strain of conflict. The elders, recognizing their efforts, offered guidance and support, creating a network of mentorship that connected experience with youthful energy. Every interaction emphasized collaboration, teaching the younger generation that courage alone was insufficient without wisdom and foresight. As the RDA established a forward base on the outskirts of the northern reefs, tension escalated. Scouts reported mechanical devices, unfamiliar flora adapted for industrial exploitation, and patrols that threatened the balance of the ecosystem. The Na'vi responded by deploying observation units, guided by Spider and aided by the creatures of the reefs, ensuring that every movement of the enemy could be monitored. The stakes were higher than before. The presence of weapons capable of large-scale destruction demanded vigilance, precise strategy, and decisive action. The Na'vi knew that failure could result in irreversible damage to both life and culture, underscoring the importance of preparation and unity. Kiri's connection with Awa deepened, providing clarity during these uncertain times. She led rituals of foresight, enabling the Na'vi to anticipate natural shifts, assess potential threats, and plan responses with heightened awareness. These spiritual practices complemented the practical measures of defense, blending tradition with necessity. For Spider, Kira's teachings reinforced the importance of responsibility, restraint, and the ethical use of his powers. His growth into a figure capable of influencing both human and Na'vi outcomes became more evident with every decision he made, showing that leadership depended as much on understanding and empathy as on strength or skill. The night skies over the reefs reflected both beauty and foreboding. Bioluminescent life illuminated the waters, a living reminder of the wonders Pandora held and the fragility that accompanied them. Jake, standing with Natri and their children, contemplated the forthcoming challenges. Their past victories had come at great cost, yet the lessons learned strengthened their resolve. Every action, every choice, every bond between the Na'vi and the creatures of Pandora would be critical in the battles to come. The anticipation of conflict heightened focus and sharpened instincts, but also reaffirmed the fundamental truth. Survival was not merely the avoidance of death, but the protection of life in all its forms, a principle that guided every Na'vi heart and mind. The next confrontation would test not only physical skill, but wisdom, strategy, and the enduring bonds that connected Pandora's inhabitants. In the quiet before the storm, each clan member embraced their role, understanding that unity and foresight would determine whether the balance of life endured or collapsed under the weight of human ambition and the fury of those who sought vengeance. The calm was short-lived, as intelligence of renewed RDA activity reached the Metcayana village. Jake Sully convened a council with Natri, Loak, and other clan leaders to assess the situation. Satellite scans and scattered reports confirmed that the humans were regrouping, gathering resources for another campaign. The Na'vi understood that complacency could prove fatal. The memory of past losses lingered, urging them to prepare strategically, while the physical strength of their clans remained formidable. The challenge lay in anticipating human tactics and protecting the fragile ecosystems that had been so easily damaged before. Every decision carried weight, Every precaution held potential consequences for the lives of both the Navi and the creatures they shared Pandora with. Spider demonstrated remarkable growth, continuing his training with Kiri. His unique abilities, derived from his hybrid physiology, allowed him to sense subtle changes in the environment and communicate with wildlife in ways others could not. Each lesson reinforced his understanding of the symbiotic relationship between the Navi and their world. Through patience and observation, he learned to anticipate the movements of both predator and prey, mastering the delicate balance required for survival on Pandora. His presence strengthened the clan's confidence, serving as a bridge between human ingenuity and Navi tradition, a reminder that adaptability was a crucial asset in the ever-shifting dynamics of their world. Meanwhile, Varing solidified her influence over the Manquan, encouraging loyalty through fear and ambition. She maintained control of advanced weaponry previously supplied by the RDA, preparing for what she anticipated would be a decisive confrontation. Quaritch, always calculating, reinforced the alliance, exploiting the Manquan's fervor, while ensuring that their strategic actions served his broader objective of revenge against Jake Sully. The combination of human ingenuity and tribal cunning posed a significant threat, and the Navi knew that victory would demand more than brute force. It required foresight, unity, and mastery of both land and sea. Within the village, Loak and Syria took on responsibilities that extended beyond physical protection. They mediated disputes, coordinated training exercises for younger Navi, and ensured that cultural traditions remained intact, even amidst preparation for war. Their leadership fostered a sense of continuity and trust, reinforcing bonds that might otherwise weaken under the strain of conflict. The elders, recognizing their efforts, offered guidance and support, creating a network of mentorship that connected experience with youthful energy. Every interaction emphasized collaboration, teaching the younger generation that courage alone was insufficient without wisdom and foresight. As the RDA established a forward base on the outskirts of the northern reefs, tension escalated. Scouts reported mechanical devices, unfamiliar flora adapted for industrial exploitation, and patrols that threatened the balance of the ecosystem. The Navi responded by deploying observation units, guided by Spider and aided by the creatures of the reefs, ensuring that every movement of the enemy could be monitored. The stakes were higher than before. The presence of weapons capable of large-scale destruction demanded vigilance, precise strategy, and decisive action. The Navi knew that failure could result in irreversible damage to both life and culture, underscoring the importance of preparation and unity. Kiri's connection with Awa deepened, providing clarity during these uncertain times. She led rituals of foresight, enabling the Navi to anticipate natural shifts, assess potential threats, and plan responses with heightened awareness. These spiritual practices complemented the practical measures of defense, blending tradition with necessity. For Spider, Kira's teachings reinforced the importance of responsibility, restraint, and the ethical use of his powers. His growth into a figure capable of influencing both human and Navi outcomes became more evident with every decision he made, showing that leadership depended as much on understanding and empathy as on strength or skill. The night skies over the reefs reflected both beauty and foreboding. Bioluminescent life illuminated the waters, a living reminder of the wonders Pandora held and the fragility that accompanied them. Jake, standing with Natri and their children, contemplated the forthcoming challenges. Their past victories had come at great cost, yet the lessons learned strengthened their resolve. Every action, every choice, every bond between the Navi and the creatures of Pandora would be critical in the battles to come. The anticipation of conflict heightened focus and sharpened instincts, but also reaffirmed the fundamental truth. Survival was not merely the avoidance of death, but the protection of life in all its forms, a principle that guided every Navi heart and mind. The story of preparation, vigilance, and hope continued, weaving together the fates of the Navi, the Tulkun, and the hybrid humans, like Spider. The next confrontation would test not only physical skill, but wisdom, strategy, and the enduring bonds that connected Pandora's inhabitants. In the quiet before the storm, each clan member embraced their role, understanding that unity and foresight would determine whether the balance of life endured or collapsed under the weight of human ambition and the fury of those who sought vengeance. The approaching days brought unease across Pandora, as intelligence from distant scouts confirmed that the RDA was advancing steadily. Jake Sully organized a series of strategic simulations with the Navi clans, ensuring that everyone understood the terrain, potential hazards, and the most effective ways to safeguard both their people and the environment. Each clan contributed its unique skills, The reef dwellers excelled in aquatic ambushes, the Omaticaya in forest maneuvers, and the air nomads in swift aerial reconnaissance. Coordination became the cornerstone of their preparation, reflecting the principle that no single strength could triumph over a combined, organized force. Spider continued his evolution as a central figure, bridging the gap between human ingenuity and Na'vi intuition. His hybrid abilities allowed him to interpret the intentions of the wildlife, anticipate threats from mechanical devices, and predict human tactical behavior. Kiri guided him in understanding the subtle rhythms of Pandora, teaching him patience, perception, and ethical responsibility. His presence reassured the Na'vi and instilled confidence in the clans, demonstrating that adaptability and insight could rival brute force in determining the outcomes of conflict. Faring strengthened her grip over the Manquan, ensuring that every member of the clan understood the consequences of defiance. Her leadership was both respected and feared, as she wielded the weaponry supplied by the RDA with precision and ruthlessness. Quaritch, ever observant, coordinated the Manquan's actions with cold efficiency, manipulating alliances and directing strikes that tested the Na'vi defenses. The looming threat forced Jake and his allies to consider not only the immediate dangers but also the potential repercussions of each engagement. Every skirmish risked escalation, and every choice carried the weight of the ecosystem and the lives entwined within it. Among the younger generation, Loak and Soraya undertook responsibilities that extended beyond combat. They guided training sessions for the new recruits, integrated the cultural teachings of their ancestors, and encouraged communication between clans to foster unity. This mentorship cultivated resilience and trust, allowing younger Na'vi to embrace the challenges ahead with clarity and determination. Lessons in patience, observation, and collaboration became just as essential as skill in battle, emphasizing that the survival of Pandora depended on wisdom as much as on strength. As the RDA fortified their base near the northern reefs, the Na'vi monitored every movement with vigilance. They observed the deployment of unfamiliar technology, the introduction of invasive flora, and the systematic exploitation of resources. Jake Nitori and their allies developed strategies that relied on terrain knowledge, symbiotic cooperation with native fauna, and the predictive insights of Spider. Each action was calculated, minimizing risk while preserving the delicate balance of life. Even the smallest misstep could result in catastrophic consequences, a reality that reinforced the importance of preparation and careful execution. Kiri's spiritual connection deepened further, providing insight into the currents of life and the warnings of Awa. Rituals of awareness allowed the Na'vi to anticipate shifts in both human behavior and natural cycles, giving them a crucial advantage. Spider's bond with the world complemented these efforts, translating spiritual insight into tactical awareness. Together, they embodied the integration of knowledge, intuition, and ethical responsibility, illustrating the broader lesson that survival required more than instinct. It demanded understanding and foresight. At night, the reefs glowed with the ethereal light of bioluminescent flora and fauna. This beauty, however, was juxtaposed with the tension of impending conflict. Jake reflected on the responsibilities of leadership, the sacrifices of the past, and the vigilance required to protect what they loved. Nitori, standing beside him, felt the same blend of hope and apprehension, knowing that their actions would define the future for both their family and the wider Na'vi community. In these quiet moments, the interconnectedness of life on Pandora became apparent, highlighting the profound stakes of the battles that awaited them. Each day tested the Na'vi's unity, the adaptability of their strategies, and the resilience of their culture. The coming confrontation would demand courage, precision, and unwavering commitment to protect the fragile harmony of Pandora. In this delicate equilibrium, the choices of Jake, Spider, Kiri, and their allies would determine whether the world they cherished endured or fell under the weight of ambition, violence, and vengeance. The first signs of direct conflict emerged as the RDA fleet advanced closer to the northern reefs. Surveillance indicated that Quaritch had positioned advanced artillery and fortified positions, anticipating the Na'vi defensive maneuvers. Jake convened a council with the leaders of all the clans, emphasizing the need for precise coordination and disciplined execution. Every member understood that victory would not depend solely on combat skill, but on the integration of strategy, observation, and unity. Preparations intensified as the Na'vi mobilized their forces. The reef dwellers coordinated aquatic patrols, placing sentinels in strategic locations, while aerial units mapped the RDA positions and recorded patterns of movement. Scouts gathered intelligence on Quaritch's forces, noting shifts in patrol schedules and weapon deployments. Each piece of information contributed to a dynamic plan designed to anticipate and neutralize the RDA's strengths. Jake oversaw these efforts personally, ensuring that the synchronization of the clans was meticulous and that communication channels remained clear and reliable. Spider's role evolved into that of a vital strategist and connector. His unique physiology, coupled with his understanding of both human technology and Na'vi behavior, allowed him to interpret data that others could not. Together, they formulated approaches that minimized exposure to direct attacks while maximizing the effectiveness of their defenses. Meanwhile, Varing's Manquan clan tightened its influence over the conflict. Quaritch exploited this alliance, instructing the Manquan to enforce strict discipline while executing aggressive maneuvers designed to provoke errors in the Na'vi strategy. Varing demonstrated tactical ingenuity, anticipating the Na'vi response in several areas and adapting quickly to unexpected developments. Her presence on the battlefield served as a constant reminder that the RDA's advantage did not lie solely in firepower, but in the combination of ambition, cunning, and calculated cruelty. The Na'vi maintained a balance of patience and readiness, understanding that premature action could result in disaster. Loak and Soraya continued to mentor younger warriors, reinforcing the importance of clarity of mind, ethical conduct, and precise execution. Kiri deepened her spiritual connection to Awa, guiding rituals that revealed patterns in human behavior and subtle shifts in natural phenomena. These insights enabled the Na'vi to anticipate movements, manage resources effectively, and maintain confidence even as the threat intensified. Jake, Nitori, and their family reflected on the immense stakes of the coming confrontation. Every decision carried consequences, not only for their survival, but also for the preservation of the ecosystem and the continuity of their cultural heritage. The anticipation of battle sharpened awareness, strengthened bonds, and reinforced the profound responsibility that leadership entailed. The first direct encounters began with measured skirmishes along the reefs, testing defenses and probing weaknesses. The Na'vi engaged with precision, using terrain and environmental advantage to counteract the technological superiority of the RDA. Despite the ferocity of the confrontations, restraint and strategic awareness guided every action, emphasizing survival and efficiency over reckless aggression. Each maneuver strengthened the Na'vi's confidence, underscored their unity, and highlighted the principle that understanding and preparation could match even the most advanced military technology. Even as battle plans unfolded, Jake remained aware of the human cost of conflict. Quaritch's relentless pursuit and Varang's unwavering discipline illustrated the capacity for ruthlessness when ambition overshadowed ethical consideration. The Na'vi faced not only a physical threat, but a moral challenge: to defend life and preserve their world without succumbing to the same destructive impulses they opposed. As night fell over Pandora, bioluminescent light illuminated the reefs, revealing the silent readiness of the Na'vi forces. The air vibrated with tension and anticipation, a reminder that the next day could determine the course of the conflict. Each member of the clans understood their role and the stakes of the engagement, prepared to act with precision, courage, and ethical responsibility. The culmination of planning, preparation, and unity set the stage for decisive action, illustrating that the survival of Pandora required intelligence, cooperation, and unwavering commitment to life itself. The dawn brought a tense calm over the northern reefs as the Na'vi forces awaited the arrival of the RDA fleet. Jake and Natari moved among the warriors, offering encouragement and final instructions, reinforcing the need for vigilance, precision, and unity. Spider and Kiri remained close, monitoring the environment and relaying observations that might influence tactical decisions. The subtle shifts in currents, wind patterns, and animal movements were indicators that the Na'vi used to anticipate enemy behavior. Every detail mattered, and every mind contributed to the collective awareness necessary to face an enemy with advanced technology and strategic ruthlessness. When the RDA fleet appeared on the horizon, the tension transformed into focused determination. The fleet was more formidable than anticipated, equipped with heavily armored ships and advanced aerial units capable of rapid deployment. Quaritch commanded the forces with ruthless efficiency, while Varang coordinated the Manquan clan, ready to strike with lethal precision. The Na'vi relied on their intimate knowledge of the terrain, their agility in the water, and the synchronized actions of multiple clans. Each unit executed tasks with clarity, blending skill and instinct, demonstrating the effectiveness of preparation, foresight, and collaboration. Initial confrontations involved skirmishes along the reef and within the shallow coastal zones, where the Na'vi's mobility provided an advantage. Loak and Soraya led small squads to divert attention, drawing enemy focus away from critical positions. Tulkun allies moved beneath the surface, creating barriers and unpredictable movements that forced the RDA to adjust their tactics. Spider and Kiri coordinated closely with the aerial scouts, ensuring that every maneuver was informed by the latest intelligence. The battle became a contest of adaptation, observation, and judgment, as the Na'vi sought to exploit every opportunity while avoiding unnecessary risk. Despite the intensity of combat, ethical restraint guided the Na'vi's actions. Jake insisted on protecting both sentient life and the integrity of Pandora's ecosystems, avoiding destructive attacks that might provoke long-term consequences. Kiri's connection with Awa provided insight into environmental responses, helping the Na'vi anticipate hazards and maintain the balance between survival and preservation. Each decision reinforced the principle that true strength lay in harmony, strategy, and moral clarity, rather than in raw aggression or technological dominance. Varing's Manquan clan proved a formidable adversary, combining aggressive tactics with disciplined coordination. Their attacks tested the Na'vi's defenses at multiple points simultaneously, forcing rapid reassessment and adjustment of strategies. Quaritch exploited the Manquan's ferocity to pressure the Na'vi, aiming to create fractures within the coordinated defenses. Yet, the Na'vi responded with composure and precision, utilizing the terrain and natural cover, coordinating attacks that disrupted enemy formations and reduced the effectiveness of their technological superiority. As the battle escalated, the Tulkun and other wildlife joined the conflict with calculated interventions. Massive underwater movements altered currents and disoriented RDA forces, while aerial and terrestrial animals executed defensive maneuvers that reinforced human tactical weaknesses. Spider's ability to connect with the wildlife and understand their behavior allowed the Na'vi to anticipate actions that humans could not predict. Each victory, no matter how small, reinforced morale, strengthened coordination, and demonstrated the advantages of intimate knowledge of the environment, combined with strategic planning. At one critical juncture, Quaritch attempted to breach the central reef defense with an experimental weapon designed to neutralize environmental advantages. Jake and Natari anticipated the threat through careful observation and diverted enemy attention through controlled maneuvers, minimizing casualties while preserving key positions. Spider's interventions and Kiri's spiritual guidance proved essential in predicting the weapon's trajectory and mitigating its impact. The confrontation highlighted not only the disparity in technology, but also the effectiveness of intelligence, preparation, and the unwavering commitment of the Na'vi to defend their world. As the day drew to a close, the Na'vi maintained control of critical regions, despite sustained enemy pressure. Injuries and losses reminded everyone of the stakes, yet cohesion and resolve remained unbroken. The combined forces of the clans, guided by leadership, experience, and intuition, demonstrated resilience in the face of superior firepower. The unity and foresight that had been cultivated over months of preparation proved decisive in resisting Quaritch's advances and preserving strategic positions for future engagements. In the evening, Jake convened a council to assess the day's outcomes and adjust the broader strategy. Recognition of both achievements and vulnerabilities ensured that lessons were integrated into ongoing plans. Spider and Kiri continued their monitoring of environmental and human patterns, while Loak, Soraya, and other younger warriors reflected on their experiences and responsibilities. The day's conflicts reinforced the understanding that survival required not only courage and strength, but also intelligence, patience, and moral clarity. The night was quiet, punctuated only by the natural sounds of Pandora. The Na'vi remained alert, yet the calm provided a moment to reflect on the enormity of their task. Each participant understood that the ultimate resolution depended on discipline, unity, and the continuous application of knowledge. The day's battle demonstrated the effectiveness of preparation, the power of collaboration, and the enduring principle that true victory was grounded in strategy, foresight, and the unwavering protection of life and culture. Morning light revealed the aftermath of the previous conflict. With damaged reef structures, wounded warriors, and exhausted wildlife scattered across the coastal region, Jake ordered medical assistance, ensuring that both Na'vi and allied creatures received care. Natari supervised the redistribution of supplies, while clan leaders communicated with distant territories to assess whether additional support was necessary. The battlefield reflected both the cost of resistance and the determination of a people unwilling to surrender their land, culture, or future. Kiri and Spider focused on studying environmental responses, noting subtle shifts in water temperature, coral activity, and the behavior of surrounding wildlife. These changes suggested that Awa was responding to the conflict, reinforcing the idea that Pandora itself remained an active participant in the struggle. Their findings guided strategic planning, influencing decisions related to positioning, movement, and defense. The Na'vi understood that success depended not only on physical strength, but also on alignment with the natural systems that sustained their world. Quaritch regrouped his forces and intensified psychological pressure through targeted reconnaissance and controlled strikes aimed at weakening morale. His objective was to destabilize the Na'vi alliance by provoking fear, uncertainty, and internal doubt. Varing's Menquan warriors supported these efforts with swift, forceful assaults intended to overwhelm isolated positions. Despite these challenges, the Na'vi maintained discipline, reinforcing their defenses through coordination, adaptability, and shared purpose. Loak and Syre led reconnaissance efforts across both land and water, gathering intelligence on enemy movements and identifying vulnerabilities within RDA formations. Their observations revealed overextended supply routes and increasing strain on communication systems. These weaknesses presented opportunities for strategic disruption, and Jake authorized limited operations designed to reduce enemy mobility and resource availability while avoiding unnecessary destruction. Naturi organized specialized units to protect vulnerable communities, including families displaced by the conflict and sacred sites essential to cultural continuity. Her leadership emphasized compassion alongside defense, reinforcing the idea that preservation of life and tradition remained central to their cause. This approach strengthened morale and reinforced unity across clans, ensuring that resistance was grounded in purpose rather than anger alone. Kyrie's connection to Awa deepened as she sensed increasing spiritual activity within the forest and ocean networks. She conveyed visions of interconnected pathways forming between clans, wildlife, and ancestral memory. These experiences guided tactical decisions, aligning movement and positioning with natural currents, terrain, and ecological rhythms. The Na'vi interpreted these signs as confirmation that their struggle was recognized and supported by the living world itself. Spider continued to navigate his complex identity between human and Na'vi cultures, contributing his understanding of RDA technology, strategy, and communication systems. His insights enabled the Na'vi to anticipate enemy actions, neutralize surveillance equipment, and disrupt coordination without direct confrontation. His role became increasingly vital, serving as a bridge between two opposing worlds, while affirming his commitment to protecting Pandora. As pressure increased, Quaritch initiated a decisive maneuver, aimed at forcing the Na'vi into open confrontation. He deployed heavily armored units toward a central stronghold, intending to provoke a large-scale engagement. Jake recognized the strategic risk and countered with a layered defense, combining deception, terrain utilization, and coordinated response across multiple clans. The objective was not immediate victory, but containment, attrition, and preservation of strategic advantage. The resulting confrontation tested the resilience of all participants. Waves of conflict unfolded across land, water, and air, requiring constant communication, rapid decision-making, and unwavering focus. The Na'vi forces executed coordinated movements, drawing on their training, experience, and spiritual connection to Awa. Despite technological disparities, their unity, adaptability, and understanding of the environment enabled them to maintain defensive integrity. As the engagement subsided, both sides sustained significant losses, yet the Na'vi retained control of critical territories. The outcome reinforced their confidence, while underscoring the necessity of continued vigilance and strategic refinement. Jake convened another council to evaluate progress, address emerging threats, and ensure that future actions aligned with both tactical objectives and ethical principles. The night concluded with a solemn gathering, where warriors, elders, and families reflected on the sacrifices made and the responsibilities that remained. Songs of remembrance and resolve echoed across the landscape, reinforcing collective identity and purpose. The Na'vi understood that their struggle extended beyond survival. It represented the defense of balance, harmony, and the living connection between all beings. This awareness strengthened their resolve as they prepared for the next phase of the conflict. Dawn arrived with a heavy stillness that lingered across the forests and coastlines, as if Pandora itself were gathering strength after the previous trials. Jake stood at the edge of the high cliffs, observing the shifting skies and listening to the distant calls of wildlife. He understood that the next phase of the conflict would demand not only physical endurance, but emotional resilience. Every decision carried consequences that extended beyond the battlefield, shaping the future of entire generations. Naturi led a ceremonial gathering to honor those lost in recent confrontations, guiding prayers and songs that reaffirmed unity and remembrance. The ritual served not only as tribute but also as renewal, reminding each warrior that their struggle was rooted in protection rather than destruction. The presence of elders reinforced continuity, ensuring that ancestral wisdom guided the path forward rather than vengeance or despair. Kiri continued her spiritual communion with Awa, sensing increasing activity within the planetary network. She described visions of interconnected roots, waters, and skies forming a living web that responded to both pain and hope. These insights provided strategic clarity, suggesting pathways for movement, concealment, and defense that aligned with Pandora's natural rhythms. Jake integrated these visions into planning sessions, recognizing that spiritual awareness held equal value to military intelligence. Queric intensified operations with precision-focused incursions designed to isolate smaller Na'vi groups and disrupt communication lines. His tactics reflected an evolving approach that favored pressure over spectacle, attrition over confrontation. Varing's Manquan warriors complemented these efforts through swift, calculated strikes that targeted resources, supply routes, and defensive structures. The objective was gradual destabilization, rather than immediate dominance. Loak and Soraya coordinated reconnaissance missions across oceanic territories, tracking enemy vessels and monitoring environmental disturbances caused by RDA activity. Their findings revealed increased mechanical presence near sacred marine zones, signaling an impending violation of ecological and spiritual boundaries. Spider infiltrated compromised zones using his understanding of RDA systems, extracting data related to deployment schedules, energy usage, and strategic objectives. His information revealed plans for a large-scale extraction initiative, targeting regions rich in biological and mineral resources. This discovery shifted the focus of resistance from reactive defense to proactive protection of critical territories essential to Pandora's survival. Naturi organized joint training exercises between forest and reef clans, strengthening coordination across diverse terrains and combat environments. These efforts emphasized adaptability, communication, and mutual trust, reinforcing unity across cultural and ecological boundaries. Warriors learned to synchronize movement, timing, and response, ensuring that future engagements reflected collective strength rather than isolated effort. As tensions increased, internal challenges emerged within certain allied clans, fueled by fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Jake addressed these concerns directly through dialogue, transparency, and reassurance, reinforcing shared purpose and long-term vision. His leadership emphasized stability, trust, and responsibility, ensuring that unity remained grounded in understanding rather than obligation. Kiri experienced a significant spiritual event during meditation, sensing an impending shift within Pandora's energy patterns. She described a convergence of fire, water, and earth forces that symbolized transformation rather than destruction. These visions suggested that the conflict would soon enter a decisive stage, where balance would be tested but not broken. The interpretation strengthened resolve while guiding strategic restraint. Quaritch prepared a decisive campaign, aimed at asserting dominance over a major Na'vi stronghold. His forces mobilized with advanced equipment, fortified positions, and reinforced command structures. Jake countered with layered defense strategies that integrated natural terrain, environmental concealment, and synchronized clan responses. The objective remained preservation, endurance, and disruption of enemy momentum, rather than direct annihilation. As preparations continued, the Na'vi reinforced communication networks across land and sea, ensuring rapid coordination and response capability. Elders, warriors, and youth alike contributed to logistical support, medical care, and environmental restoration. This collective effort reinforced the understanding that resistance extended beyond combat, encompassing protection, healing, and cultural continuity. The day concluded with a council gathering where leaders reflected on progress, challenges, and responsibilities. The atmosphere reflected both gravity and determination, recognizing that the path forward required sacrifice, patience, and unwavering unity. Jake concluded the council by reaffirming commitment to Pandora, Awa, and future generations, emphasizing that their struggle was not merely against an enemy, but in defense of life itself. Jake observed troop formations from elevated terrain, recognizing patterns in enemy movement that indicated a shift toward territorial occupation rather than resource extraction alone. This signaled a dangerous escalation, suggesting long-term control rather than temporary intrusion. His response required precision, patience, and unwavering resolve. Naturi led reconnaissance through dense forest corridors, identifying newly constructed outposts concealed beneath mechanical camouflage. These structures disrupted natural growth patterns, altering soil integrity and threatening nearby ecosystems. The discovery reinforced the urgency of intervention, yet Jake insisted that timing and coordination remained central to any response, avoiding reckless action that could result in unnecessary loss. Kiri continued to experience heightened sensory awareness, perceiving disturbances within Ajua's network that echoed across vast distances. She described these disruptions as fractures within a living system rather than isolated wounds, emphasizing the need for restoration rather than retaliation. Her perspective influenced strategic priorities, shifting emphasis toward containment and healing alongside resistance. Quaritch's command implemented psychological pressure campaigns designed to undermine morale, using surveillance drones, propaganda broadcasts, and targeted intimidation. These tactics aimed to fracture alliances and provoke fear-driven reactions. Jake countered with strengthened communication, transparency, and communal rituals that reinforced unity, trust, and shared purpose across clan boundaries. Spider intensified infiltration efforts, accessing restricted facilities and transmitting vital intelligence regarding enemy supply chains, energy consumption, and strategic vulnerabilities. His findings revealed dependency on specific logistical routes that, if disrupted, could significantly reduce operational effectiveness. Jake incorporated this data into coordinated defense planning, ensuring minimal risk to civilians and ecosystems. Loak and Soraya expanded maritime patrols, observing increased mechanical presence near underwater geothermal vents and sacred reef formations. These locations held both ecological significance and spiritual importance, making their protection a priority. Their vigilance allowed for early detection of intrusion attempts, preventing irreversible damage and preserving delicate marine systems. Naturi organized advanced training sessions focused on stealth movement, terrain navigation, and coordinated defense across forest, mountain, and aquatic environments. These sessions emphasized synchronization, adaptability, and mutual trust, strengthening collective readiness while reinforcing interclan bonds. Warriors emerged with increased confidence and shared understanding of their roles within a unified resistance. Internal discussions among clan leaders addressed concerns regarding prolonged conflict, resource sustainability, and emotional endurance. Jake facilitated these conversations with openness, ensuring that fears were acknowledged and solutions collaboratively developed. This approach maintained morale while preventing division, reinforcing leadership grounded in responsibility rather than authority. Kiri experienced a profound spiritual encounter during a secluded meditation, sensing a convergence of elemental forces that suggested transformation through balance rather than destruction. She interpreted this as a reminder that resilience emerged not from dominance but from harmony. Her insight influenced strategic restraint, encouraging responses aligned with preservation rather than escalation. Quaritch prepared a coordinated offensive targeting multiple Na'vi strongholds simultaneously, aiming to fracture defensive networks and isolate allied clans. Jake countered with distributed defense strategies, leveraging natural terrain, environmental concealment, and synchronized responses across regions. This approach prioritized endurance, protection, and disruption over direct confrontation. As the day progressed, environmental signs reflected increasing tension within Pandora's systems. Wildlife migrations shifted, plant life exhibited stress patterns, and atmospheric conditions fluctuated unpredictably. These indicators reinforced the urgency of intervention, while emphasizing the interconnectedness of all life within the planetary network. Songs echoed across the valleys and waters, strengthening spiritual unity and collective resolve. Jake addressed the gathering with calm determination, emphasizing that their struggle represented not only defense but the preservation of identity, heritage, and future generations. The storm arrived at dawn, not as rain but as an oppressive stillness that pressed against the forest canopy and ocean surface alike. Jake recognized this silence as the prelude to large-scale movement, a calm that masked calculated aggression. Surveillance reports confirmed simultaneous deployments across multiple regions, signaling the execution phase of Quaritch's strategy. Naturi led defensive coordination from a forest ridge overlooking 3 major access routes, directing units with precise gestures rather than vocal commands to preserve concealment. Her team used environmental awareness rather than technology, blending into foliage, terrain shadows, and natural formations. This organic coordination allowed them to remain unseen while maintaining constant positional advantage. Curie sensed a deep disturbance in Iowa's energy flow, describing it as a tightening within the planetary consciousness. She communicated this to Jake, explaining that resistance alone would not restore balance unless accompanied by deliberate acts of restoration. Her guidance reframed the objective beyond survival, shaping the response as preservation of systemic harmony rather than tactical dominance. Quaritch initiated the offensive, with mechanized divisions advancing through forest corridors and coastal shallows simultaneously. Air units disrupted communication lines, while ground forces established containment zones designed to isolate Na'vi groups and restrict movement. This methodical progression emphasized territorial control rather than immediate destruction, revealing a long-term occupation strategy. Spider infiltrated command infrastructure once more, intercepting encrypted communications that revealed operational priorities and deployment weaknesses. He transmitted critical data that exposed dependency on centralized power nodes and limited fuel reserves. Jake integrated this intelligence into a targeted counteroffensive that aimed to disrupt operational sustainability rather than engage in direct confrontation. Loak and Soraya coordinated maritime defense along geothermal ridges, positioning units to protect sacred marine sites and thermal ecosystems. Their strategy focused on diversion and containment, redirecting mechanical forces toward unstable underwater terrain where natural conditions reduced mobility and visibility. This approach preserved ecological integrity while limiting enemy advancement. Naturi's forest units initiated synchronized containment maneuvers, utilizing terrain, elevation, vegetation density, and environmental acoustics to confuse and disorient advancing forces. Rather than confrontation, these maneuvers aim to fragment formations and delay progress, creating opportunities for strategic withdrawal and regrouping rather than escalation. Jake maintained oversight through distributed command nodes, ensuring that no single failure could compromise overall coordination. This structure reinforced resilience while enabling rapid adaptation to shifting battlefield conditions. His leadership emphasized endurance, precision, and protection of civilian populations above all else. Curie initiated a coordinated restoration ritual alongside spiritual leaders from multiple clans, channeling energy toward damaged ecosystems and disrupted habitats. This act reinforced AOS regenerative processes, counteracting environmental degradation and strengthening planetary equilibrium. The ritual also provided emotional grounding for warriors, reinforcing purpose beyond conflict. Quaritch responded with intensified pressure campaigns, targeting supply routes and attempting to isolate vulnerable communities. His strategy aimed to erode trust and provoke fear-driven responses. Jake countered with transparent communication and reinforced communal support systems, maintaining morale and cohesion despite increasing strain. As the conflict intensified, natural systems reacted visibly. Storm patterns shifted, seismic activity increased near volcanic regions, and bioluminescent networks intensified across forest and ocean landscapes. These phenomena reflected AWA's active engagement in planetary defense, reinforcing the interconnectedness of all life. This concluded with a coordinated withdrawal from contested zones, not as retreat but as strategic repositioning. Jake addressed his people, affirming that preservation required patience, adaptability, and unity. He emphasized that their struggle extended beyond territorial defense, representing the survival of a living system and the future of all who depended upon it. The withdrawal initiated a new phase, not of defeat, but of reconfiguration. Jake relocated command operations to a cavern network beneath volcanic rock formations where geothermal energy sustained both shelter and communications. These subterranean systems provided natural insulation from surveillance and allowed strategic planning. Beyond enemy detection, every movement now served long-term stability rather than immediate confrontation. Naturi expanded reconnaissance units across forest borders and ash plains, ensuring constant environmental awareness. Her approach prioritized observation over reaction, allowing early identification of enemy movements and minimizing unnecessary exposure. Each scout operated independently yet remained linked through silent signaling techniques, refined over generations. Curie continued deep communion with Awa, her consciousness extending through root systems, coral networks, and volcanic vents. She sensed structural damage, not only within ecosystems, but also within emotional bonds between clans. Her insight revealed that fear, grief, and exhaustion weakened resistance as profoundly as physical injury. Restoration, she explained, required emotional alignment as much as ecological repair. Quaritch consolidated his forces around resource extraction zones, focusing on energy acquisition rather than territorial dominance. This shift revealed dependence on planetary resources for prolonged occupation. Jake recognized this vulnerability and ordered disruption strategies targeting logistical sustainability rather than combat efficiency. Loak and Soraya led covert operations within underwater volcanic trenches, utilizing geothermal currents to mask movement. Their teams sabotaged extraction equipment, causing mechanical failures that appeared environmental rather than deliberate. This method preserved deniability while steadily eroding enemy capacity. Spider intercepted communications, revealing rising internal conflict within human command structures. This fracture within leadership weakened strategic cohesion, creating hesitation and delayed response cycles. Naturi coordinated defensive repositioning along sacred pathways, ensuring protection of migration corridors, nesting grounds, and ceremonial sites. These locations represented more than territory. They embodied cultural memory and spiritual continuity. Defense became preservation of identity rather than possession of land. Kiri organized a planetary alignment ritual, drawing participation from forest, reef, ash, and mountain clans. This synchronized act strengthened AOA's regenerative systems, stabilizing energy flow across damaged regions. The ritual restored bioluminescent networks, reinforced seismic balance, and revitalized marine ecosystems affected by industrial disruption. Quaritch initiated psychological operations targeting civilian populations, attempting to undermine trust in Na'vi leadership through misinformation campaigns. Jake countered with transparent communication, emphasizing unity, truth, and collective responsibility. This clarity prevented erosion of morale and reinforced communal resilience. As planetary systems stabilized, new growth emerged from scorched terrain, and marine populations returned to damaged reefs. These visible signs of regeneration reinforced belief in AOA's protective capacity. Warriors found renewed strength, not in victory, but in witnessing restoration. Jake reflected on leadership evolution, recognizing that command no longer centered on conflict resolution alone, but on stewardship of planetary harmony. He acknowledged that survival demanded adaptability, restraint, and unwavering commitment to preservation rather than domination. The regeneration of the valley altered the strategic environment. Jake interpreted this adjustment as both weakness and opportunity, recognizing that prolonged engagement had diminished human adaptability in the planetary environment. Naturi expanded diplomatic outreach to isolated clans, previously uninvolved in resistance. These communities lived along glacial rivers and high-altitude plateaus, where ash fallout rarely reached. Their knowledge of atmospheric currents and geological stability provided new intelligence routes that strengthened defensive positioning across previously inaccessible regions. Kiri intensified her connection with Awa through extended meditation within volcanic chambers, where she perceived shifts in planetary equilibrium. She identified fractures within the energy lattice beneath industrial zones, revealing structural vulnerabilities that could cause cascading failure without direct confrontation. Her guidance allowed resistance planners to align strategy with planetary self-regulation rather than impose disruption. Quaritch attempted operational recovery through recruitment of private military contractors and experimental surveillance technologies. However, unfamiliarity with the environment reduced their effectiveness. Equipment failures increased, supply routes destabilized, and personnel morale declined as isolation and environmental hostility persisted. Loak and Soraya coordinated intercline training programs focused on environmental navigation rather than combat engagement. These sessions emphasized mobility, camouflage, and energy conservation, ensuring readiness without escalating hostilities. The objective centered on survival and protection, rather than dominance. Spider uncovered documentation confirming that Earth-based leadership viewed Pandora as a diminishing asset due to resource depletion and political resistance. This revelation altered resistance strategy, shifting focus toward long-term planetary autonomy rather than immediate expulsion of human presence. Naturi strengthened cultural education within resistance communities, ensuring younger generations understood ancestral practices, spiritual protocols, and ecological stewardship. This reinforcement preserved identity during prolonged uncertainty and prevented cultural erosion under external pressure. Jake ordered reduction of offensive operations, prioritizing stabilization of ecosystems and protection of sacred sites. His leadership philosophy evolved toward guardianship rather than warfare, reinforcing trust among clans and reducing psychological exhaustion among warriors. Kiri initiated restoration cycles within damaged coral systems, reviving marine biodiversity and strengthening oceanic energy pathways. This renewal restored oceanic navigation routes, essential for interclan communication and trade, reinforcing planetary unity beyond territorial boundaries. Quaritch's authority weakened as command failures accumulated. Internal investigations delayed operations, reduced resource allocation, and created divisions among leadership factions. This organizational stagnation provided the resistance with strategic breathing space. The chapter closed with a planetary convergence at twilight, where bioluminescent forests, volcanic plains, and ocean reefs pulsed in synchronized rhythm. Jake sensed that Pandora itself had entered a defensive alignment, not through aggression, but through restoration and balance. He understood that victory no longer meant defeat of an enemy, but preservation of a living world. The final phase unfolded not through battle, but through transformation. The human presence, once aggressive and expansive, entered a state of withdrawal shaped by economic collapse, political resistance on Earth, and the growing realization that Pandora could not be dominated without destroying the very systems that sustained all life. Jake observed the retreat, not with triumph, but with solemn clarity, understanding that survival demanded restraint from all sides. Natri guided the clans through a planetary reconciliation ceremony, uniting sky, sea, forest, and ashlands in a shared spiritual covenant. The ritual reinforced Awa's harmony, stabilizing the energy lattice that had been fractured by industrial intrusion. This unity restored balance without the need for further sacrifice, marking a transition from conflict toward preservation. Kiri's connection with Awa deepened beyond vision and voice. She sensed the planet reorganizing its internal rhythms, redirecting energy away from areas of disruption and strengthening natural regeneration zones. Her role evolved from intermediary to guardian, ensuring the continuity of planetary consciousness for future generations. Quaritch, stripped of authority and isolated from command, faced a moment of reckoning. Without confrontation, he departed Pandora, not as a victor or enemy, but as a witness to a world he could neither conquer nor comprehend. Loak and Soraya emerged as symbols of a new generation, unburdened by legacy warfare, yet shaped by its consequences. Their leadership emphasized coexistence, adaptability, and ecological responsibility. Through them, the clans envisioned a future where survival did not require conflict, only understanding. Spider, having bridged human and Na'vi identities, chose to remain on Pandora, committing himself to planetary stewardship. His decision reflected a shift away from allegiance to systems of extraction, toward loyalty to life itself. He became a living testament to reconciliation, rather than division. Jake stood at the edge of the forest canopy as dawn illuminated the renewed lands below. The air, once thick with ash, now carried the scent of growth and renewal. He recognized that victory had never belonged to any individual or faction, but to the living world that endured beyond war, beyond ambition, beyond fear. The story closed not with an ending, but with continuity. Pandora remained alive, resilient, and whole, shaped by sacrifice, yet sustained by harmony. The future was not written in conquest, but in care. And within that care, life endured.